And now, it's showtime.
Down to business. I got my wild cherry Diet Pepsi, and I got my blackjack gum here, and I got that feeling. Yeah, that familiar feeling that something rank is going down out there.
And if you can't believe it, it's a Friday once again.
Good. You're not coming home. Where can I go then? You can go to the gutter where you belong, you filthy pig.
The stuff that dreams are made of. Huh?
A city caught in the cat's cradle crosshatch of shadow and smoke, a metropolis murmuring its midnight confessions to anyone cursed enough to listen. Descended into that somnambulant sepulchre of secrets, a place where morality goes to molt and justice wears a gas mask to keep from choking on the stench of its own compromises. Born out of a year in which comics clawed for meaning in a madhouse marketplace, and yet in the pages we will look at tonight, you will find a crucible of creeping dread and clockwork corruption, a collage of perspectives penciled and inked by a cabal of craftsmen, each carving their own eulogy into the celluloid reflections of a dying decade. The artwork fractures, splinters, separates, until truth itself becomes a shattered mirror reflecting 9 contradictory faces of the same undying, unyielding night. Presiding over it all, we have our titular hero, a sleepwalking sage of sin and sorrow, drifting through his dreams dense with guilt and wading knee-deep through Sumerian cesspools of the human condition. He is both hunter and haunted, an avatar of uneasy conscience in an era that sold its soul for the price of a nickel newspaper or a dime store magazine. Step forward into this liminal labyrinth of lies, this pulp purgatory, where every alley is an accusation and every whisper is a waking nightmare. The stage is set, the players are masked, and the night, as ever, is waiting for us to inhale it whole. Here in the gutter, everyone ends up here eventually. It is only a matter of time. Greetings to episode 130 of The Gutter, the final episode of our NOIRvember series. I am your host, Aldous, and I will be going solo tonight as my normal co-host, JP, is on family duty, dealing with the holiday season, as it were. But let's see who has decided to join us in the chat this evening. We've got Citizen Ronan. Always a pleasure to see you, sir. If you're not following Citizen Ronan, he is a fantastic painter and dabbles in numerous other artist forays. So go check him out. Follow him on the Twitter X format. We also have Quiet Red Media, who he himself is slowly building his own little nascent empire of published works and apparel. Go check out Quiet Red Media on X as well. I highly recommend just about everything Quiet Red does. He does excellent work. Scrolling down a bit, we've got Mr. Bemis is here. Here I am, stuck in the gutter again. Indeed, sir. And it wouldn't be the gutter if you weren't here. You make the streetlights blink just a little more often. Everybody's saying hey, 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 and good to see you all. But yeah, man, this is slowly is right. Thanks, man. Yeah, of course, man, of course. But yeah, so tonight's book is it's something pretty special. And for those of you, if this is your first time in the gutter, this is the world's greatest comic book show that airs on Friday nights from 11:30 for about an hour. I think we're the only comic book show that airs at 11:30, and that's what makes us special. But tonight, my dear friends, we are looking at a book that I dearly love. I always, any chance I can get to hawk this thing and put it in somebody's hands, I will. But the Sandman Mystery Theatre, we're going to be looking at annual number 1 tonight from September of 1994. And I have that cover somewhere maybe. And of course, now everything goes to shit, but I had it here. You know what? We don't need to talk about the cover. But Sandman Mystery Theatre ran for 70 issues from April of 1993 to February of 1999. An absolute legend within Vertigo. This is one of Karen Berger's babies. And the annual that we'll be looking tonight is 68 pages. It's spread across 9 chapters. And I could show you the front matter on this, but I won't. This is one of the few times I'm not going to do this, because if I show you the front matter, it's going to break the essence of what I'm going to try to create here tonight, because this annual is something special. It was written by a co-writing team of none other than Matt Wagner himself and Steve Siegel. That's Matt Wagner, and this is Mr. Siegel. And each chapter features a different artistic theme, carefully aligned with that artistic theme. Each perspective of the story we're about to talk about has a certain angle to it, and that angle, those artists were chosen very, very carefully for what we are about to look at. And this was not without precedence, because under Karen Berger, Vertigo truly became something special. Really during just its 90s run. We're not going to talk about much else that came after that, because as soon as Berger left, the wheels fell off that wagon really fast. But Vertigo kind of positioned their annuals as something was more of a celebration for artists, especially. The stories were usually always absolute bangers, but the art in them was always something just a notch above what you came to expect. In Vertigo, you were always expecting that line to be pushed. And the talent that is on this issue is extremely notable. But before I get into that, let me talk a little bit about how can you acquire this. Now, there is an omnibus. There's an omnibus out there. I'm not going to hawk it, because I don't recommend you buy it, because the foreword was written by a guy that murdered his wife. So allegedly. So instead, I'm just going to tell you that this is semi-easy to find. In fact, the whole series is semi-easy to find It's not the kind of thing where you're going to take like one trip to your LCS and be able to find every issue. They might have it collected, but that's pretty rare. This is a great like hunt book. You can pretty much finish it up to the last 3 or 4 issues, and it's not going to cost you more than $1 to $2 a book. With the exception of the last 3. The last 3 are kind of difficult to find because the run was limited. It was starting to die off and people just weren't buying it, so the print runs are limited. So it's a little harder to find. You're going to pay, a little bit more for those. But this annual that we're going to be talking about tonight is from 94, which is pretty much around the peak. So it's relatively easy to find. But you're going to be looking at about like $4 to $5 for like a really nice copy. You can get this in reader grade for like $1. I don't think I've been to an LCS in the last few years that I haven't eventually found it if I go through enough long boxes. Now, to be fair, the LCSs that I go through, their dollar bins are, 10 to 15 to 30 long boxes. But, to each their own. Eventually, if you look long enough, you will be able to find this. On eBay, it's going to run you like $5 plus shipping, so maybe like $9. If you want one right now, you can get it. It's available online for digital as well, so there's always that if that's your preferential format. But yeah, Sandman, yes, the ECW legend, indeed, my friend. And Quiet Red Media says metal indeed. But let's dive right in. And so what we have here is we have 9 chapters, and we tonight are going to be going through each individual chapter, page by page, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on. And the first chapter of this story is entitled "The Eyewitness," and it is drawn by Guy Davis. Guy Davis should be absolutely no stranger to anybody that's been here, spent any time in the gutter here this last few years. He is the artist behind Caliber Press's Baker Street and the Marquee. He most recently actually was the concept artist on Del Toro's Frankenstein on Netflix. A man has huge name recognition. The colors were done by none other than David Horung. Horung is a renowned artist and colorist. His work's been on display at numerous galleries. During the 90s, he was on a ton of different titles, Sandman Mystery Theatre included. And what this first story encapsulates is the prelude. It's the introduction. It sets the table, so to speak. And our character, which at this point, again, this was released in September of 94. The series has already been running for more than a year. We're well aware, if you're picking this up warm, who Wesley Dodds and Diane are. If you're picking it up cold, they do a really good job of setting it up and introducing you to these characters. But either way, our main character, Wesley Dodds, and his paramour, Deanne, go for a saunter through Central Park's literary walk. And Diane is just not really feeling it, but Wesley shows his culture. He shows the depth of his knowledge of literature as he starts quoting as they walk by these statues of all these literary greats and quoting from their works. And Diane makes a light joke, and there's laughter. And they're lovers, and so they sit down and they enjoy each other's company for a moment. But out of the corner of his eye, tension emerges because he witnesses an attack by a figure that is dressed eerily similar to that which he scorns the night dressed as, and that's the Sandman. And he's distressed because he doesn't know what's going on. And so he and Diane abscond to go have dinner. And he makes a mental note that this is something he needs to look into. And the greatest part of this entire exchange is that our titular hero is a normal man. He's not Superman. He's not the Green Lantern. He's not the Flash. He's not built. He's just an average guy. Wesley Dodds is an average guy. He's wealthy. He has a butler. He has an estate. But he's an average guy in appearance, in both appearance and stature. He's not built. He's not strong. He's just an average guy. And Diane is not a supermodel. She's an average woman. So everything about these two is completely average. Now, they're very intelligent. They're very cultured. They're very well read. but they are average in the sense of how we perceive other people. And perception plays such a huge role in who the Sandman is and how Matt Wagner and Siegel have positioned this story. And so then we move from chapter 1 to chapter 2. And chapter 2 was drawn and colored by David Lloyd. David Lloyd, here is Mr. Lloyd. Mr. Lloyd he's an English artist. He's most widely known and arguably the most famous for drawing V for Vendetta. And he was the designer of the now infamous Guy Fawkes mask that Anonymous uses online, or the V mask, depending on how you want to credit it. He was also known for his work on Hellblazer with Vertigo, to much acclaim. But chapter 2 focuses on the butler, and it's focusing on Humphreys, who is Mr. Wesley Dodd's butler. And it gives you a little bit of background on their relationship. It shows the interview process that he went into to become Wesley Dodd's butler, and what that relationship is built on. And at first, it's built on a little bit of misunderstanding, but it evolves into an understanding that it was not Humphrey's willingness to look the other way for previous employers, but his discretion for not being able to tell you why. And that's very important to Wesley, and that builds an immense amount of trust between Humphreys and Dodds. And that relationship is important, not so much within the context of this annual, but it's a nice throwback to why they have such a cordial relationship as not just employer and employee, but they're friends. And Humphreys understands what Dodds is going through and is willing to help him because he knows he's a good man. And that's vital for not this issue, but for the understanding of the series on how it goes. And ladies and gentlemen, we do have a little bit of illustrious company that has joined us this evening. Zaid Comics has joined us. Always good to see Phil. Phil with 2 L's. I actually just got my copy. Well, I might have actually received it earlier in the week. I was just going through the mail today because Thanksgiving always makes Thursday is a crazy time, at least in our house here just off the farm, just off Orwell Lane. But I just received my copy of The Man with No Strings. Absolutely blown away, Phil. You did a great job. I mean, I read the PDF, but the book looks great. So congratulations. And Henry Bemis asks, wasn't this the only annual for the series? I know it's the only one in my collection. Yes, this was the only annual for the series. It ran for 70 issues from 93 to 99, but it did only receive this one annual. And this one annual features 9 chapters. And at this point, you may have already clued in, each chapter features, 8 of the 9 chapters feature different artistic themes. It opens with Guy Davis and it ends with Guy Davis. And that's partially because Guy Davis worked on the series. And speaking of Guy Davis, Mr. Bemis says, I love Guy Davis's stuff. He was perfect for Sandman Mystery Theater. He was. Mr. Davis attacks the page with a pen in a way that nobody else does. I don't know if he used a nib or what size nib if he did, but my God, his art, it feels like it's etched. It feels like you're looking like at a Gustave Doré etching, a wood etching from the Paradise Lost from Milton, or his work with Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Coleridge. It just has something special to it that feels eternal on the page, more so than a lot of other artists. I absolutely adored Guy Davis's work for that nature. But what we have here is, as we go through chapter 2, is we learn a little bit about Humphreys and who Humphreys is, who he's worked for. How does that relationship bode between the two? And what you're seeing here is in all of these stories, I want you to, in fact, I should, if I can, in fact, I didn't save this. I apologize real quick. Let me see if I can add this to this one. If I can't, I'm going to pull it up on another one for my overlays. But, and I apologize for not being prepared here, but I do want to take a moment. We're going to pause right here in the midst of chapter 2 and talk about this. And this is Wallywood's 22 panels that always work, as transcribed to the Marvel bullpen by none other than Larry Hama of G.I. Joe fame, also of MASH fame. He was a guest star in one episode of MASH. But Wallywood put these panels down, and they're panels that always work. And it's different perspectives you can use so that you're not using the same perspective in repetitive panels or on the same page. Because the last thing you want to do, unless you're Tom King, is reuse the same angle repeatedly, because you want dynamic action in your comic page. You want to have that gutter imply action and movement between one panel to another. What Mr. Wood here, who I would argue is one on the Mount Rushmore of comics, is saying that these panels always work. So as we look through chapter 2, you will see these panels, those pages always used. Each art team does an absolutely exquisite job, with the exception of one instance, which I will argue is more an artistic choice. It's not really a failure. It's just an artistic choice later. But they do a great job, man. Absolutely fantastic job. And so we move through chapter 2, and we get the conclusion of showing that relationship between Humphreys and Dodds. Again, this is a little bit more exposition. It's a little bit more prelude. But we show that even when Wesley's in trouble, Humphreys is there, and he always protects Mr. Dodds' secret, that he is the Sandman. And then we move into chapter 3. And chapter 3, ladies and gentlemen, is drawn by one of my absolute favorite artists ever, and it's drawn by John Bolton. Now, Mr. Bolton was a graduate from the East Ham Technical College. Fellow alums of said university are Barry Windsor Smith and Ralph Steadman. His work first in the States, he was brought over to the States after working on numerous British comic series. But his first one was Bizarre Adventures number 26 in May of 1981. After being offered the opportunity by Marvel's Ralph Macchio. And it's a fucking amazing Cull story. It's absolutely great. There is one page in it that I will always highlight. I've posted it before on X, and I will continue to post it. But it's of a giant kraken, a giant octopus, a cephalopod attacking a ship, and Cull fighting it. It's a brilliant page. But he also worked with Chris Claremont on Miranda She-Wolf, Swamp Thing, and Hellblazer for DC. He's an absolute goddamn legend. But this is just a fantastic. And chapter 3 focuses on the stakeout, is what is entitled. And this is where we start entering the depths of the mystery. And we start finally seeing Dodds cast down his guise of wealthy, wealthy philanthropist, wealthy man on about town of Dodds. And he fully wraps himself in the guise, both mentally and physically, of the Sandman. And there's not much dialogue here, because there doesn't need to be much dialogue, because the Sandman operates in darkness, and he operates on just the edge of the dream. And he stakes out Central Park looking to catch the figure that he witnessed in the act of assaulting the couple while he was with Diane. And the essence of what we're bringing across here, and what Bolton hits an absolute home run on, is shadow. It's dread. It's patience. But it's more importantly suspense. And the way Bolton pens these pages handles it perfectly. He knows when to break the gutter line. He knows when to leave things a little distant, as you see on this page with the bridge scene. He's playing games with suspense defined in page form. And it always shows, also, he plays with the depravity that's shown just on the edges of society. The things that, when the night wraps the park in inky blackness, the things that are unacceptable to go on in daylight occur within Central Park. Central Park itself is, which is mentioned in chapter 1, it's the heartbeat of New York. But at the same time, as it pumps the blood, it pumps two things. It pumps the red and the white blood cells, but it also pumps the infection that coexists within the body that will never fully leave New York, because it's always there. It's an urbanite site that's always in an eternal state of decay. And Bolton captures that perfectly in this. And one of the most brilliant moments of this chapter 3 is the rat tail breaking the gutter as he drives two ne'er-do-wells out of the city that are committing Lucius acts together. And it's such a subtle tone, but it shows that the rat is ever present. Even if you drive it out, it's still there. The rat, the vermin always will exist within the context of the city, and you will never be able to drive them out. But before we go to chapter 4, We do have Quiet Red Media says, please, Mr. Red Media is my father. Call me Red. Indeed. Always good to see you, Red. And he also says we all need a Humphrey. We all do need a Humphreys. Humphreys is an important part in our lives. And Citizen Ronan says, always good when the Karate Kid likes your stuff. Yes, that always makes me smile when I see Ralph Macchio. What else we got here? But we're moving into Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is entitled The Body. And the art is by none other than Stefano. Oh, I'm going to butcher this. Guadiano. He's an Italian artist, most widely known for his work much later, on The Walking Dead over on Image. Colors are given by David Hornbug. The description of this story, it's really sharply paced. But now we are working into a little bit of the background of the stalker himself, the villain, and we see a little bit of interaction. And is he a bad guy? Is he murdering people? No, he's not, but he did in this instance. And it shows the situation, and it presents it in a form of narration. And it's elaborated upon a little bit. And we are shown a scene with a narrator explaining it, complementing the display of the art as we go through it. And it's two Italian Utes, I guess we would say, two Italian Utes are walking through Central Park and see an African-American couple, and they call them crows because it's the 1930s. And this is my one objection with the story. Like, racism doesn't need to exist everywhere in the 30s. In fact, in the 30s, New York would have seen very low amounts of this, arguably. But in any case, there's some racism, and they go and they assault the couple, and they're getting ready to take have their way with his girl, and the stalker shows up as they're marching her off. And you get this great page layout. I mean, what Stefano's playing with here is really great stuff. It's a very busy page, but it's action oriented. The dialogue is oriented in just a nice way. Very nice style. But we get that really great moment of motion, and he assaults the two Italian lads, and he ends up killing one of them. So now we have a dichotomy. He looks like the Sandman. He's dressed kind of like the Sandman. But the Sandman doesn't kill. So what's going on here? Is he the Sandman? Is it an imposter? We're presenting that choice. And we've got that great question that's going to lure over ourselves. And as the chapter closes, we see the body being disposed of. And then we move into the next chapter, which is called The Cop. And the cop is drawn by none other than George Pratt. Now, I could wax poetic about Mr. Pratt's work, but allow me to, if I could, just to briefly summarize. His first major published work was an epic illustrated number 20. He went on to work on the fantastic graphic novel Enemy Ace War Idol, which was nominated for an Eisner. He also worked on Batman Harvest Breed, again an Eisner nominee. And he ended up winning an Eisner, I believe, in 2003. In short, he's a badass artist, and anything that Pratt's on is worth your time. But moving into Chapter 5, if you can believe it, we're already on Chapter 5. Chapter 5, The Cop. Now we're taking the perspective, and if you haven't caught on yet, each chapter is just a perspective of a story. It's one story, and we're just each chapter taking a different angle from where that story goes. Each chapter has a different introduction. We present you how they get to that position. Each chapter is also successive in that they play upon the build of each other. The stalker is already present within the context of Central Park. It's already occurring. However, now we're going to get the perspective, the view of just a patrolman from the NYPD, just your average guy that's walking through the park. That's his beat. And again, you get that suggestion, the subtle suggestion that there's a little bit of incompetence, there's a little bit of corruption that rings the edges of New York. It's in the dialogue of how the narration is presented. And again, we see that wonderful page layouts. We're playing with grid styles. And I haven't talked much about grid styles. I'm going to kind of summarize that a little bit at the end. But what we're playing with here is kind of that 9-panel grid. And we're playing with a 9-panel grid, and we're doing a lot of the beat motifs that we've talked about 2 years ago when Ellis talked about a comic book is a song. And the dialogue are the lyrics, but the panel progression is your melody. And what we're playing with here is how long do you hold that note and when do you hold that note? And when you're doing a 9-panel grid, if you see it break from that standard 3-beat, that's an indication that you're drifting into a verse. And what do we see on this one? When we break into that 2 panels at the bottom, we break into a little bit of a heavy dialogue. We're going into the verse of the story. These are important points that when you're looking at a well-crafted book from people that know what they're doing, these are all indicators of what's important and what's kind of exposition that's leading into your important clues. But we get the cop's walking through. He gets a little bit of interface with a press guy, but eventually he's doing his beat, and it's just a mundane. It's the banal. And we hold for a moment, a long moment, right there in the center of the page as he just takes in the scene of Central Park at night. It's bathed in shadow. Shadow is very important when you're talking about Sandman Mystery Theater, because the Sandman operates at night. And then he disrupts a couple that's doing what young couples do underneath a bridge and tells them to move on. But then he spots the Sandman silhouetted against the night sky in a tree. And he thinks it's the stalker, and it's his response to chasing him down. And we get these great action beats that you don't see. And again, you can see how we're playing with that grid. We're accentuating action. We're overlaying panels. We're using white backgrounds to accentuate moments of response to action. It's fast paced. And then we pause it all with a massive splash to accentuate. We have to put the exclamation mark on the moment when he runs into a cameraman and the camera goes off. And then the Sandman, Wesley Dodds, slips away into the night, but we have a photograph of the gas, of him disappearing into the inky darkness of the night. And at that moment, ladies and gentlemen, so that I can both take a quick drink and so I can adjust my notes, we are going to move to intermission.
Yeah.
Try some new Minute Maid orange tangerine. It's got calcium.
Then I'm not drinking it.
Oh, no, it's sweet. You like it.
I don't believe you.
Well, then who would you believe?
I don't know, Robert Loggia? Whoa, Robert Loggia!
Billy, your mother's right. New Minute Maid orange tangerine tastes great. It's got as much calcium as milk.
If you say so, Mr. Loggia.
Yeah.
This is great.
Enjoy your breakfast.
New Minute Maid orange tangerine with calcium.
Yeah.
Greatest orange juice commercial ever made. But with that being said, we are now, and you know what? I apologize. I forgot to put the background music on for NOIRvember. But now we move into arguably the story that, if you're familiar with this issue, everybody talks about. And that is Chapter 7, The DA. Chapter 7, The DA is drawn, inked, and, well, it's drawn in ink because it's in black and white by none other than Alex Ross himself. It is the absolute star of this issue. Alex Ross went out of his way to make it so. It is a testament to both his talent and what Wagner and Siegel were able to drag out of him for what he was able to accomplish. But before I show you a page, let's catch up on comments. Once was cool says, at any rate, there's some racism. It's a heck of a point to enter a stream. Good to see you, man. And I'm sorry you had to walk into that. But yeah, it's there, but not really it doesn't serve a point in the context of the story. It feels like it's just kind of shoehorned in, and it really isn't needed. Other than to kind of show that it gives the stalker a little bit of benevolence in why he's doing what he would be doing, or what his motivations might be, at the very least. And Jason Sandberg says, I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. Well, wonderful to see you, Mr. Sandberg. Thank you so much for joining. And yes, indeed, I apologize. I was so ramped up to talk about the book. I didn't wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. So I hope you had a chance to spend some time with family and have a wonderful Thanksgiving yourself, to all of you. But to jump right in, let's just, get it over with. Let's take a look at what Alex Ross offered up in Chapter 6, The DA. And here's the first page, ladies and gentlemen. It bears all the perspective that you'd expect from Mr. Ross. It's from the perspective of the DA, the elevated power structure within the context of the city. We are moving up slowly in our perspective. We start at the common man, we move up through Wesley, our titular hero, then we move to the cop. Now we've moved to the DA himself. And relationships are shown here as we realize, and it's revealed that not only is he the district attorney, he is also Diane's father. And he knows Wesley and he knows Diane, and he compliments that he's never seen his daughter so comfortable and around since she's been around Wesley. And it reminds him of how her mother was when they first started dating, when they first started seeing each other. So there's a little bit of, it's a beautiful progression of how that process works. And it's all wrapped up in this absolutely stunning art by Mr. Ross. And we see that there's a dark side to the district attorney as well, because when he returns to work, he's overwhelmed. He's going through everything that he's got to do, and he relies on a crutch. He relies on alcohol. And he takes a little nip from his flask at his desk. And we get that moment when another coworker comes in and they've got more going on. And they're talking about the stalker. The Sandman is known to the higher-ups. He wasn't known to the patrolmen, but he is known to the higher-ups. And confusion persists, because is he the stalker, or is he also looking for the stalker that's in Central Park? And this is the classical conflict of the vigilante, used very, very well by Wagner and Siegel in their dialogue. It doesn't feel like a retread of anything that Batman has covered in any issue before. It feels fresh in how they're approaching it. It's, well, on one hand, they want him because he's breaking the law, and they're, knights of justice trying to do what they can to clean up the city. But on the other, he's putting criminals away. And even to their point, he's outworking them. He's outworking the police in what he's been able to accomplish. And it's that back and forth. But then as the DA returns, as Mr. Belmont returns to his office, he is greeted by none other than the Sandman, who asks, mirroring the same question that Wesley subtly asked earlier of, what do you know about this stalker in Central Park? And the DA excused himself and says, I don't know anything about that. But now it's night. The overworked DA returns to his office, and the Sandman is waiting. It's Wesley, now in the Sandman guise, asking him, what do you know? And there's a presentation, there's an exchange that they are familiar with each other. It's that Commissioner Gordon-Batman relationship, but it's framed in such a way that it feels fresh. It doesn't feel like this is treaded ground. We're breaking fresh ground with how this relationship is moving forward to us, the reader. And that's a credit, again, to Wagner and Siegel and how they're phrasing it. And it certainly helps that Ross is able to capture these absolutely stunning images on the page. But they are disturbed as an officer walks in and interrupts their parley, and violence, of course, ensues. And the Sandman is able to, he drops a gas pellet, fires his gun, and disappears, as he is apt to do. And the DA picks up the phone, and he realizes, as Diane calls him, that he never warned her to stay out of the park. And that's how we drift into Chapter 8. But an interesting point of contention here for a character study is that Diane is out with a friend. And as we're going to find out in Chapter 8, Chapter 7, she's out with a friend, and she's going to the theater. And this chapter is entitled The Mugger. But up to this point, Wesley Dodds and the Sandman, the same man, but in both guises, know that there's something going on in the park. He witnessed it when he was there with Diane earlier. Her father, the DA, knows that something's going on in the park, but he doesn't say anything. They don't warn the person that they care about because they're so focused on their job, they don't think about it. And it is only in the next story that we find out what's going to happen as Diane takes a shortcut through the park. Chapter 7 of this annual was drawn by none other than Peter Schnellsberg. He is Danish by birth, and he worked on DC Starman, among a number of other Vertigo titles. Several issues of Dark Horse's BRPD, And he was classically trained at the Danish school, which I am going to absolutely butcher, the Kolding Kirchthashvashker School from 83 to 87. Colors on Chapter 7 were also done by David Horung, who we mentioned earlier. But as we move into Chapter 7, we see this great, and I mean, if you're a fan of BRPD, you're immediately going, oh my God, because yes, it's that BRPD stylings. It's absolutely right there. But Diane's walking past the World War I Veterans Monument, and brilliantly, the guy that's mimicking the Sandman, the stalker, has blended into part of that, and he starts following her. And they're walking out. She's walking out of Frank Capra's "You Can't Take It With You," which of course carries the double metaphorical meaning of both what that movie is about and the title in what we are about to see. And she's stalked through the park as she's unaware about the passing things that are going on around her. The stalker's following her the whole time, and it's just slowly building up that suspense as he gets closer and closer and closer until a horse races by and he's not able to get there, and the story ends as he's unable to follow through with it. And then we move into Chapter 7, or Chapter 8, the bystanders. And this was drawn by Dean Ormston, another Brit. I know you're going to be shocked by that, but Mr. Ormston studied at Leeds University. He did quite a bit, man, at on Judge Dredd, where any issue you pick up with 2000 AD that has a Judge Dredd story by Armstead, you immediately know it's him because of his heavy painted style. He's got a really just unique style that you're about to see in some of the pages, and it screams awesome. He worked on the Sandman series for Vertigo as well as Lucifer, Books of Magic, and numerous other DC titles. Colors again were by David Horung. And as we go into Chapter 8, this is the bystanders, and this is a really unique chapter in how it does, because it takes the perspective not of a single individual. We've seen the police, we've seen the DA, we've seen the stalker himself, we've seen Wesley, and now we're getting into just the average person, and the average person includes some police that are staking out the park. It includes an artist. It includes two men that are digging some sewer line holes, and a bunch of kids that are just up in a treehouse listening to a radio. And it's the story of them watching what happens. And it introduces all the characters in a really clean line, but you can see that style that I was talking about that Dean does. And it just kind of bleeds across the page. The ice cream man with the brilliant white background, even though it's darkness, even though they're in the park at night, really nice stark contrast to play with the shadow, where his cart's bathed in shadow and the background's brilliantly white. Just a lot of really smart choices here. And we see there's a horse carriage with lovers that are going down the path, and they keep on paying the guy more until the stalker jumps out and says, give me your stuff. And it turns out, no, they're two cops. They're not lovers. But it goes afoul, and we get some nice little action beats. We're building up that anticipation, building up that, ramping up that suspense, again, because that's what this entire book is about, is suspense. Where are we going to go? When do we get our conclusion? And we get some great scenes here of the stalker as he's going around through the park. He comes across the sewer. He interacts with everybody that we were presented with earlier for the bystanders, because again, it's all about perspectives. We come across the artist, and then we finally meet the kids, and then he disappears into the darkness of the night. And then we move into our last chapter, Chapter 9, The Solution. And again, this was done by, again, Guy Davis, and you're going to see when I talk about it's etched on the page, you're about ready to see that, because we get to the exciting conclusion, again, colored by David Horung. And we dive into this, and you can see it. You can see that etchness on the page. And this story, the park, is the perspective. It all happens within the context of the park. And Wesley now is setting his own trap, with Humphreys assisting as he gets the stalker to reveal himself the same way the police did. However, we're showing that Wesley's a little bit more competent in how he handles things than the police, and he dons his guise of the Sandman after they are absconded, and he chases him, and we get some great conflict. And there's a nice little like quirky line where Wesley says, I'm sorry, but you had to shave your mustache. And Humphrey's response is, I'm less worried about my mustache than I am my legs, because he had to shave his legs because he's pretending to be a woman with dots. I thought that was kind of it's a good little gag. It's a nice little passing line. And gags like that are important because it just kind of breaks the overly serious tone of the rest of the book to give you a little bit of a laugh. And again, then we turn the page and we immediately continue building that suspense as they're in pursuit of each other. They find each other. Wesley conflicts them. He gets his gun gets thrown out of his hand. They've got to wrestle. They've got to fight. And we get some great action with very little dialogue. And this is so incredibly difficult to do, ladies and gentlemen. It's difficult that you can contend with a story and have an artist so eloquently design this. But this is Guy Davis, and he's an expert at it. And he's going to go through it, and you get that etchedness on the page, like it was scrawled in, like it was a stone tablet. And this needs to be read in 1,000 years. And as that conflict persists, Wesley gets the upper hand. And again, we get that 9-panel grid. We get the pause moments. We get the quick repetitive. And then, boom, we get the reveal that our villain isn't really a villain at all. And this was shown to you all the way back in chapter 4, The Body, where he defended a helpless couple that was being assaulted. And he's not a murderer. He's not a bad guy. He's just an unemployed immigrant that lost his job. And he's been stalking Central Park, robbing people to make ends meet. And this is where you get the difference between Wesley Dodd and Batman. This is where you get the difference between Wesley Dodd and the Shadow. This is Wesley Dodd. Again, he's a normal guy. He just happens to have an immense amount of wealth, and he can't sleep at night. So he dons the Sandman guise and goes out and fights crime. And when he finds evil, he attacks evil. But here we don't have evil. Here we have desperation. So he subdues the victim, and he takes him home. And he leaves him with a note that says, stop doing this, or I will have to do something. And he leaves some cash under his pillow because he's wealthy and he's a philanthropist. And he gives the guy a chance at a new life. And if the man chooses that new life, then he'll never see the Sandman again. But if he goes back to Central Park, then the Sandman is waiting. And that's how we end it, is that Central Park is the life's blood of New York. And there's hope and there's loss. And both exist within the same. And we wrap up the story with that. And it's absolutely stunning. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a fantastic annual that gives you a little insight into the character, into the world of what the Sandman was. And Guy Davis, Henry Bemis says, Guy Davis was great at portraying realistic violence. I couldn't agree more. He's a fantastic artist. It's a damn shame he hasn't done more. But as is usual, without JP here as my co-host, I have run to the end of the show, and so I would encourage you all to grab this. I think it's a fantastic annual. It gives you a really great window into what Sandman Mystery Theater is. Sandman Mystery Theater remains one of my favorite series that Vertigo ever put out. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think it's better than just about anything Matt Wagner has ever done. And the covers alone are artistic beauties, and go check them out for yourself. But check out this annual in particular. I think it's a great snapshot of what the series is. It's an absolute fantastic opportunity to be able to end NOIRvember here in 2025 on this note with this annual. And with that, other than I will be dropping the link for the back room in the chat if you want to join me and chat a little bit about this or anything else that we've covered, or just comics in general, or just the standard bullshit. All are available. There's the link. But from me to you, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope the rest of the weekend goes great for you. And I hope to see you back here as JP and I start off December with what promises to be a fun book that hasn't been decided yet. But have a great night, everybody, and thanks for watching.
This is blood for blood and by the gallons. This is the old days, and the bad days, the all or nothing days. They're back. There's no choices left.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.